In election years, we get a lot of questions about what's going to happen based on the results of the election. Now, obviously, the results of the election are unknowable at this point, but what we do know is that historically, regardless of which party gets in power, it doesn't really have that much direct impact on the markets. So this first slide that we're going to look at here, it's just showing that on an ongoing basis, if you were just to stay invested, you significantly outperform the investor that was in when their party was in power and out when the other parties were in power. And again, we can look at that on a historical basis and find that that has consistently been true. Election years in general, even though things get scary, the news media sounds a little bit more frantic and dire, the reality is election years tend to not be much worse than an average non-election year. And certainly, whether it's an election year, non-election year, or any other year, historically there's never been a specific year where you should sit on the sidelines because any of these return scenarios here are certainly very, very positive. And then we have this third one, which is simply looking at sectors in various presidencies. And energy is probably a really good one to look at because what we see is that under the Obama administration, energy performed pretty poorly. And so when you had Trump getting into office, the assumption was that energy was going to take off based on Republican policies, whatever those may be. And what we found is that there's a lot of other things that impact the price of commodity other than who's in charge as the presidency, Congress, you name it. In this case, we had COVID and international supply or demand shocks sent prices down to negative dollars a barrel. And then Biden gets into office, it's assumed, okay, Democrats are going to be really bad for energy companies, and yet energy companies thrived under the Biden administration, not because necessarily of any policies that the president or Congress or anybody else put in place, but because you had other shocks to supply, you had significant inflation, you had Russia invading Ukraine, and all of these other issues that made oil prices go up. So again, just because your party is or is not potentially unelected, our ultimate recommendation is to stay the course because historically, regardless of which party gets into power, that has been the best course of action. If you have a question about this or anything else, just let us know.